Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
Thank you so much. Let's remain standing for word of.
Bow down our heads to pray. Almighty God, source of wisdom and truth, thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity for UBOS to have served in action of the baseline action census. Thank you for the dedication of staff and everyone who helped in bring this census to completion. I share these results too. We ask, Lord, to give us insight beyond the numbers. Remind us that a data point represents a real student, a teacher, a school, and a community. Where there are gaps, Lord, lead us on how to deal with the gaps. Grant us and unity towards them. May this serve as a clear road for our leaders and makers, guide resources to where they most. Bless discussions today. Let this data pave way for a brighter Uganda. In the mighty name of our Lord, we pray.
You may take your seats. RDC, thank you for giving a very big clap, because Uganda is a respecting country that believes in God, and we thank God for the opportunity that we're here in good health. Ladies and gentlemen, program is going to run very quickly. We have read breakfast, prayer and anthems. We shall be listening to the ED welcoming us here, but also of
Between 1885 and 1887, 5 young Christians, Cap 23 and were executed among the of refusing the faith during a period of political and religious kingdom, bound by chains, but broken in spirit, that has walked kilometers through pain, torture, and certainty of singing hymns, and encourage one another. The blood of the martyrs became the faith, not only Uganda, but across Africa. For some, it's a spiritual obligation. Others have thanked him, but for all, Mugongo, among other sites, remains sacred ground. Join EV Uganda and SPA TV for an and special coverage from the historic journey, prayers, pilgrimages, special documents, youth conversations.
Our show guest, the Assistant RCC Arua, the Deputy Executive Director, Uganda Bureau of Statistics, Senior Management, and the staff of the Bureau, the media fraternity, our viewers, and those who are viewing us on television. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. We wish to welcome you this occasion to disseminate baseline education census 2025 report. The BEC, that's what we have baptized baseline education census, but as BEC, provides data and statistics on all schools and non-tertiary institutions in Uganda. The Bureau conducted this census exercise in close consultation and collaboration with the Ministry of Education and Sports. The Beck report has detailed and up-to-date statistics on all schools and non-tertiary institutions, baseline statistics on learners, teaching and non-teaching staff, the status of infrastructure and instructional materials. This morning, as we disseminate the report, it marks the climax of our release carry for this financial year. You remember that we began of March 2026, where I have published a series of statistical reports which are already uploaded on our website for quick access and use. We shall continue to engage the different segments of our stakeholder offices to disseminate and communicate the reports there. What is now remaining for planners and decision makers to move these statistics and data to relevant actions for socio-economic transformation of our country. In the next days and weeks, UBOS will publish the Consumer Price Index and inflation figures, preliminary estimates, GDP, or domestic product, the gross national income, and table to the background to the budget for financial year 26-27. So you can see we still have much to do before the reading, which is on 11th of June. Those of you who UBOS only conductors every year have now seen that we do much more than a population housing census, and we are still moving forward. We would like this opportunity once again to applaud the public for appreciating the importance and the value of statistics. Appreciate all of you. We may take it for granted, but many countries the value of statistics. For Uganda, the public is now asking questions using the available official statistics, which is important for service delivery in our country. In a special way, we would like this opportunity to thank His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda for his strong support towards statistics. I expected a big clap. He's the champion of statistics, you know, and every speech of his draws largely and deeply from official stats produced by UBOS. So we wish everybody uses official statistics and searching with the web, going to World Bank. They think when they quote one, they are very strong. What doesn't collect or produce for the countries? They only get from countries or use the other methods, but ours are authentic because they are drawn from households and also from the sounding within our state. In addition, we extend our gratitude to the First Lady, the Minister of Education and Sport, Honorable Janet Katamusini, for having the idea of conducting the census with the objective of having an updated education management information system, and a person spearheading the enumeration exercise from the word go. You are launching the enumeration in Jinja in 2025. Our promise to the nation is to producing and having high quality of statistics that are demand-driven and relevant to human needs of our country. With those remarks, we once again welcome you and wish to declare this demonstration event shall open. God and my country. Thank you very much. So as I declare, may I call upon Deputy Executive Director of Statistics to come and introduce his team that will be giving us the results.
Thank you. Award of honor, the Chief Statistician. I know the power entrusted to you as the Executive Director and Chief Statistician. We are supposed to officially declare that these are of statistics. By the power also entrusted in me before I will present the findings, to request to allow me. You know, censuses are a national exercise, and body is supposed to be part of the census. In the process, at the end, there are special important human resource which have put up these numbers, led by Director Population Statistics. Can you stop those people? I'm surprised that Mr. Vincent Souza and the team are not standing up. They have been part of the team, and they were in numbers. Yeah, they are in numbers. So our chief guest, the chief statistician, these are the people, the numbers we are going to see. Can sit down. Our guest now, the following persons are going to present on behalf of the Bureau. And the first one is Sharon Apio Basala, is the head of Department for Demographic Statistics. Can you start? By, we normally call him General Gande Johnston, is a seasonographer. He's been the population projection numbers. Another person who is behind the operation is Diana Bielu Kakonge. He's a principal statistician also, and in charge of statistics. Honor, this time around, as we are going to the presentation, we have also used something new called the e-dissemination portal. And the people behind it includes Ivan Atwini, the head of Department for Digital Solutions. In addition, we have Kizito Edward. He's also going to present the findings. Because of him, allow me, Sharon Apio, to present the first part of the presentation.
Thank you, DED. All protocols observed. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Okay. So I'll be starting the presentation on the Baseline Education Census on behalf of our Executive Director, Uganda Bureau of Statistics. The presentation is the outline you can see before. We'll have a brief introduction to census, the methodology adopted for taking the census, the risks and challenges that faced as we undertook the baseline education census. Then we'll put to you the key findings from the census, each education level, and then we'll provide a summary of the findings. And as indicated by the Deputy Executive Director, we shall have a demonstration of our e-nation board, and then we'll conclude with a few policy recommendations. As of introduction, ladies and gentlemen, the Best Education Census 2025 was the education census undertaken by the Bureau, and was undertaken the general objective of generating baseline education statistics on all schools and national institutions which follow the formal education curriculum, mainly to strengthen the education management information system. Specifically, census was undertaken to generate a list of all schools and non-tertiary institutions in the country by level of education. Secondly, it was undertaken to generate data and statistics on the teaching and teaching staff in schools and non-tertiary institutions. Third but not least is to generate data statistics on infrastructure and instructional materials within school and non-tertiary institutions. What are the objectives of the baseline education census? As I go through the presentation, you'll come across some definitions. So I'd like to take you through some definitions and concepts you'll be seeing as we move forward. First, for the census, I spoke about education levels. So when we say primary education level, we refer to the fundamental stage of learning and the childhood development, covering baby class to top class. And this level is mainly designed for children aged 3 to 5 years old. Primary education refers to first and fundamental level of schooling, covering primary 1 to P7, which is a 7-year cycle in education system. And this is designed for children aged 6 to 12 years. Secondary education, refer to the primary level of formal education, formal school, that builds up the foundational knowledge one has acquired primary education. And this level is mainly designed for persons who are aged 13 to 18 years. It covers lower secondary, which we can refer to as the O level, and the upper secondary, which is the A level. This cycle for 6 years. Then the education level, look at non-tertiary institutions. How did we define these? These are educational institutions that offer awards below tertiary or higher education level. And these are mainly awarding institutions offering certificates under modularized program. These are mainly skills, cosmetology, skills. So they offer certificates mainly in skill development. Admit learners with minimum of primary living examination. So on the concepts, we'll be looking at status. These are measures of quality of education that underscore the outcome of education. So in terms of the quality of education, the key indicators you'll be looking, one is the pupil-teacher ratio. This is the proportion of pupils enrolled in school or education system per teacher. Why we need this indicator? It's an indicator for teaching workload, personalized instruction, overall academic performance. So how many teachers are there? How many learners are per teacher? Pupil-classroom ratio, this is the proportion of pupils per classroom in a school or education system. An indicator for adequacy of sitting space for effective learning in a given school or institution. The pupils ratio is the portion of pupils per toilet stands, which you would call a latrine or toilet unit in any given school or institution. This indicator of sanitation adequacy, the congestion in the education system. After taking the baseline education census, we followed processes. And key to the first one is, as in our statistical production cycle, is stakeholder consultations. You need this to ensure that the statistics at the end of the day are relevant, the quality, and using the user needs. So we undertook several stakeholder consultations to determine we are going to measure, which tool we are going to use, which methodology are we going to adopt. And the holders included, we had a technical working group, chaired by the Ministry of Education and Sports, had the National Council of Education, and the Internal Security Organization, among others. After these consultations, we went ahead to develop the questionnaire, test it, and then we went to recruitment and training of field staff, and then undertook data collection. This was in 2025, and then embarked on data processing analysis, report writing, and here we are today to disseminate findings from the baseline education census. You will please note that throughout all these processes, we took validation exercises and also quality assurance to ensure that our product is quality. What's the methodology adopted for the baseline education census 2025? First and foremost, the education census was complete coverage. We went to all schools in the country. And by all schools, yes, we covered all schools in the country. And the coverage was for all schools in primary secondary education, and tertiary education. In the scope, the education analysis was a calendar year, was the year 2025. And that action was undertaken from April to November of 2025. Of course, this excludes time when there is holidays. We didn't do data collection during holiday time. And the start unit of enumeration, which was our point of contact for that action, was the school or institution. So you would find that you would ensure you undertake complete enumeration. And in the enumeration we cover, in terms of content, we looked at all the learners present at school at the time of census. So it's a de facto census, those present at that point in time when we approach the school. We covered all teaching and non-teaching staff present at school at the time census. We looked at identifying particulars of the school, learners, teachers, and non-teaching staff. The census also covered issues to do with wash, looking at stances, water sources for drinking, what does the school use, what are the classrooms, what are the number of classrooms. We looked at the source of energy for eating and cooking that the school is using, information, communication, and technology use for education in line with the new curriculum, which is putting this a lot. So schools in sync. We looked at school governance, but so among others. We can't exhaust the list. There's more to this. So as we undertook census, of course, setting out, we anticipated some risks, and we had to plan how will we mitigate these. So what risks did we anticipate, and how did we address these? One of them, we knew that there will be schools inflating number of learners. And how did we ensure that this doesn't affect the exercise? We conducted a physical head count of learners in all classes from the same school at the same time. We also ensured that enumeration of all classes in the same school was done at the same time, so we avoid the issue of inflating numbers in a given class or school. But we also expect that learners would be ferried from neighboring private schools to public schools with the aim of inflating the number of learners. To ensure that this doesn't happen, what did we do? This was mitigated by visiting all schools in the same area at the same time. We ensure that to enumerate all classes in the school at the same time. So had a physical data on your region, and then we go to a district, a parish, and is deployed to ensure that the parish is covered once, leaving no one behind before you move to next. But we ensure that we had unannounced visits to schools. So yes, it was publicity, the school expecting us, the teachers, everyone, but they were not certain which would be going to the school. So that way, as you ferry, they lost on you. So we would come in and iterate and walk out. That helped to have this occurrence of learners from neighboring schools. But we also anticipated insecurity during the same period, and was mitigated by working closely security institutions prior and during enumeration. This mitigated the exposure in terms of security and ensured that the exercise is success in each areas. So implementing the baseline education census, we faced some challenges. Some risks, of course, materialized into challenges, but some we just found as we were doing the exercise, the data collection or analysis. So we also had to ensure that these are addressed. So what challenges did we find? One was that schools with more than one education management information system number or the MS number beard by more than one school. So you'd find a school sharing an MS number, or school has several in the same. The rest was the head teacher or the so you'd get different, and you're wondering which one to take. So for statistical purposes and data collection continue, we add this by generating a temporary unique code for such schools, that problem. But we also found that some had one learner identification number, the LIN. So what did we do? We considered most current learner identification number. There were also some who did not have an identification number. This is not something you was or impute or anything. We left it as indicating this respondent, this doesn't have a learner identification number. There was difficulty in accessing learners, especially during examination. And this is by collaborating with teachers and for the exam timetable closely to an activity out examination time. So there had to be a lot of collaboration between the field and the school head teacher. There was also a to provide information mainly in the Kampala metropolitan area. So mainly here, but we also exist elsewhere. How did we address this? It was addressed by increased publicity and sensitization to the general public, students, teachers, and parents. The other challenge we faced was that teachers strike was mainly in public schools. So this was addressed by rescheduling the data collection activities for affected schools until mercy returned. So you would keep those schools, do the vet, those not affected, and then come back. We went back when the strike was called. The other challenge was a closure of schools for the end of the official term. This was addressed by enumerating the schools in the subsequent phases. We had several phases of data action, so you would it forward and note that this school was not edited because it closed. But all this, there were other measures, including the review to schools and the use of digital technology to identify and solve the challenges in real time. So as I indicated, there was validation of the census process. So the Bureau conducted a validation exercise over the period of data collection.
We would be expected to see are also the same now. But here 1,000,007 additional million, which is the land who join home to P1. Another that we note that one expected is flow from P3, P4 up to P7. But we noted that there's a traffic jam. People are not thinking. And P2. So this is something that's from the parents or school. So and you to what is bringing up traffic jam actually in Pre 4. When dealing with we saw around ready learners in Europe. If a big program, all MS program, we will be 70,000 in. Because you are seeing 7, means that learners go primary. So some learners go through form. They say that pre-primary is essential. The child especially mentally missing that. Also, one would expect to see a smooth from P up to N. You see, there is traffic jam of 1,504,003, which is 1,106,029. Me and you to the unlock jam causing that traffic demonstration learners for P4 to P4, but also in P3. So it is us to do that. Our question did not have that question find out, so we are able to tell you. I tell you, I will be just relating. Now, let's look at this line by age. Also see. We have learners who are the age official school age going 6 to 10. We also have learners 13 years. They are supposed to be at the end for the tune of 2,403,66. Contributes 7% of my learners with the official age. But we also have who are less than 60 in primary, and these are 1,300 and who are 6 years. But 13 years back, I think can also associate COVID. Some people continue, others were the classes. See, once the video, I think this, we shall see if all this is trend. Now, this the last by sub-region, we still got taking a level share, and we see that Sebei sub-region has the lowest number of learners. And taking the level share, it comes to 10.1% of all learners in the country. So if you go to any learners, someone should be from one. Now, that schools are private, but when it comes, we are seeing that we more learners in government schools than in private schools. If religious sub-regions find that
27% of all secondary schools in the country. Breaking down by sub-region, we see that Buganda has the highest number of secondary schools, and Karamoja has the number of secondary schools. We can look at our regions and see how many secondary schools we have, depending on where your interest is. So now we look at the ownership. Where are the public schools and where are the private secondary schools? As mentioned earlier, the public secondary schools are fewer than the private secondary schools. Looking at the public secondary schools, we see majority of them in Buganda sub-region and the least in Madi sub-region. So Madi sub-region has the least number of public secondary schools. When we at the private schools, see again Buganda has the most number of secondary schools, and Karamoja has the least number private secondary schools. And the distribution across the sub-regions like that. So we go to learners. Who is in the secondary school? We found 2,008,133 learners in all the secondary schools in the country. Distribution by sex shows that the females constitute 53.3% of all the learners in secondary school. So we have more females at secondary level overall than males. Ownership sex with learners in public school are fewer than 3,906. This constitutes 45% of the total learners are in public secondary schools. So looking at by class, this is somehow similar as we saw in the previous level primary. We go to upper secondary, we find fewer learners. However, if we can recall the previous presentation, we saw up 700 in primary one. When we get in year one, we are seeing 508,769. So again, for purposes of advancing education, we see there is something to do here if we want everyone to progress as universal secondary education. So the trend is as you can see. So the official school going age for this category of learners, secondary 13 to 18 years. But we did find, of course, that there are those who are below the official schooling age, and there are those above. But overall, 76.4% of learners in secondary school are within the official school going age group. By sex, we can see, as we've seen, more females across the age groups. Comes to 19 years above, which a bit, and we see more males. This is the distribution of majority of learners within the official school going age group. So where are our learners? Depending on the sub-regions of interest, we see Uganda taking the lion's share of learners. Majority of the learners are in Buganda sub-region, 750,673. So most of our learners are in Buganda sub-region. Karamoja has the lowest number of our secondary school learners. When we look by ownership, learners in public schools, where are the learners in private school? We see that the fewer learners all, as mentioned, public schools and more in private schools. But if we look closely, there are some variations in the region. For example, Karamoja has more learners in public schools, 8,209, compared to private schools. Karamoja have 755 learners. So it varies with the regions. As we can see, when it comes to Buganda, fewer learners in public schools, 25,000, 420. Then you have more learners in private schools, 500. As we can see, different regions have different versions. So as mentioned earlier, this is we are basically looking at the quality of our education, how many students are able to be attended to by a single teacher. So nationally, we see that there are 40 students in secondary schools for every one teacher. And this ratio cuts across, as we can see, in public schools and private schools. At secondary level, we see a bit of a balance in how many teachers are handling students. Looking at the classrooms, as mentioned earlier in the previous presentation, regardless of the size of the classroom, we see that on average, in 45 students fit in a single classroom at secondary level. When we take a close look at the public schools, we see that a classroom accommodates 60 learners, which is almost twice that of private. So as mentioned, this is the one hall. So when it comes to secondary level, we see that on average, there are 40 students using one stance. And in public schools, we have up to 58 students using one stance, which is much lower in private schools. So in line with policy on ensuring secondary for all our learners, we look at the sub-count that have at least one secondary school, 1,716 sub-counties. The country have at least one secondary school. So they have either 1 or 2 or 3 or more. Distribution by region, as we can see, Kampala has the least number of sub-counties with at least secondary school, and Buganda has the highest. When we come to those sub-counties with any single secondary school, this is not necessarily policy. We have up to 1,108 sub-counties do not have a single secondary school. The most affected region is Bugisu. Bugisu has 87 counties that have no single secondary school. So come down specifically to public secondary schools. We see that on footnote 1,208 counties in the country have at least one public secondary school. And however, 1,007 sub-counties do not have any public secondary school. And Bugisu is affected. Bugisu region has up to 110 sub-counties without a public secondary school. We can see the distribution within the regions. So now move on to non-tertiary education and look at what is happening. We found 830 non-tertiary institutions in the country, and of these, 16.5% were public owned. We found 74,024 learners in our non-tertiary institutions. And when we look by ownership, we see that in the public schools, there are 25,351 learners, while in private schools, there are 48,000 673 learners. Generally, when we look at the blue bars, we can see that there are generally more males and non-tertiary there are females. I'll give a summary of what since we began presentations, just to recap by level. I will, before we go to your findings, I will make so a summary of this, and my colleague will. So the national level, primary education, this is a snapshot of what we found. As mentioned earlier, 18,340 schools, more private than those schools as explained. 2,074,600 learners and found level of education where there were more than females. There were 20 pupils for every one teacher, about 20 pupils on average in each class of pre-primary, and 23 pupils using one stance. Primary level, as a recap, we found 43,566 schools, more private than public, with 9,118,315 learners in primary education, with slightly more females than males. Now, at primary level, we found that 34 pupils for every one teacher, but specifically in government schools, we found that one teacher is attending to 48 pupils. Now, standard is 40. Ideally, a teacher should be handling 40 students, but in public schools, one teacher is handling 48 pupils. When it comes to the private schools, this is much lower and within the international recommendations of UNESCO. One teacher in a private school is handling 24 pupils, which is within the recommended number of one teacher for 40 pupils. We found 31 pupils being able to fit in every one class on average, and 42 pupils in primary. We are using one stance. Now, looking closely at the policies to ensure education for all in primary, we saw that 3,087 out of all the 10,860 parishes that we have in the country, that is about 28.4% of the parishes do not have a government primary school. When it comes to overall, 170 parishes out of the 10 and 8 parishes that we have, that is 12.6% parishes of no primary school at all. At 4, we found 1,098 schools, private and public schools. The learners were 2,008,133, with more females than males. Now, at secondary level, found that nationally, one teacher was handling 40 students. In government schools, it was a bit higher. One teacher is handling 41 students. Again, this is high, much higher than the recommended standard. It is recommended that one teacher handles 25 or about 30 students at secondary level. In government schools, one teacher is handling 41 students. In private schools, they are also not doing well. One teacher handling 40 students, far below the recommended 25 students for every one teacher. In secondary level, we found that there are about 55 students in every classroom and about 40 students using one stance. Now, in regard to the policy, we have seen that 1,007 out of 2,209 counties or town councils, that is about 45.5% of the sub-counties do not have a government secondary school. When it comes to no secondary school at all, we have 1,208 sub-counties out of the 2,209, which is about 54.7% of the sub-counties do not have a single secondary school. And this is the summary. Education Institute found 8 institutions with 7,024 learners. So at this point, allow me to invite my colleague, D, to give us a hands-on of what we've been seeing. Thank you for listening to me.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll also read the protocol observed as the earlier presenters. My name is Edward, and my role here is to launch you onto the big journey of access what my colleagues have presented more. So the major role is to give you the power to access statistics on your devices, wherever you may be on Earth, and even on if you have connection. So first, for the start, let's find out how do we access the nation board. And then we shall look at what can we do, what powers have. So for the colleagues on Zoom, I've shared so that you'll also be able to access this. So how we access, we start by visiting the UBOS website. That is www.ubos.org. That is the entry point to all digital platforms. You're there, you'll see the portals. And the very first one there is our data dissemination portal. The Bureau has made various efforts to make sure that accessibility is pushed to the last user and give you the power of devices wherever you may be. And we have several portals that we've been working on. Among them, the National Population and Housing Census portal, but much more that we are still working on. So this is the list of portals, and the BEC 25 is the second one. While there, we exact figures as presented earlier by the colleagues. So first, I'm going to give you an overview of the various we can explore this. So for starters, we have cards on top giving that a snapshot of the various numbers. And when you click on each of them, you can explore more. The idea is that you can go deep or as high as you want, depending on what you look for. So the first part can access this. And then next, we have this search bar. Just search for any sub-county, any district, and find out the statistics that you're interested in. So we saw the static maps, early presentations. You just search for any sub-county, any parish, and then get the figures on your device. And then have the dissemination board, which has the various cards, as we shall see. And then we also have the map. So previously you saw a static map, but we are going to see a map. You can move the country, the region, to the sub-region, up to the parish, looking at very figures at those various levels. And then for the advanced users, the platform gives you the power to build your own visualization of the data. For example, you want to see certain columns, certain rows, you want to put this data. So for the advanced users, we shall also see how we can do that. Allow me start with a board. At this level, see the national, with the first column showing pre-primary, showing us the learners. Those are 2,374,634 learners in 38,307 schools, 8,764 teachers, giving us a teacher ratio of 28. So the same go primary, and then for secondary. And while at that, we have more letters going down. Unlike what we saw earlier, this you can navigate, you can download a picture of it. If you want, you can view the numbers themselves and also export them and do your own analysis as you may want. So this is the power that this platform gives you rather than reading the static reports, looking at the static pictures. And then when we scroll down, we have more indicators. As I indicated earlier, we have the map. I want to give you this first overview of what we can do, and then we can take an example and move there. So allow me now show you. From the map, we see the regional picture. And we can see the different color bands. Buganda, as indicated here, you can see on the left, we have our indicator of primary schools, and we are seeing 4 regions. So dark blue is where you have the highest, and the most light blue is where you have the lowest. If you hover or put your cursor or you long press using your mobile phone, you'll see you have the 2,687,911 primary learners with the 17,901 in 17,901 schools at that level. We can choose a region to go deeper. So at this very point, decide to do this on the dashboard, as I indicated earlier, or even go down at the district levels. So let's go and look at the districts in the Western region and decide to pick, let's pick one of the districts here. Let me pick Rwanda district, and on top of this, I can see the summary. We have 7,509 learners in 208 primary schools. Okay? If we click and go to the sub-level, we can see now distribution of these schools at the sub-county levels. And from the color bands, we can see Mukoko and Hara in 38, the highest there. And then we see some teachers have lessons. Let's speak of this at the level. So at the parish level, Kagunga schools and then Chishango schools. So this is the power that gives you. And at the same level I indicated earlier, this gives you what you've seen and more. Now, let us pick 6 schools. I can have national pick of secondary schools and also look at the regions. If I go to the north, the secondary schools, we can see we have 193,220 secondary school learners, 604 schools. Okay? There, in this time, let's go to the dashboard and see models at that level. So you realize when I click there, come to the northern, and I can see pre-primary, I can see primary, secondary, as we saw earlier. So in these very columns, decide to go to the sub-region in there. Let's say we go to West Nile. When I select West Nile, I see the breakdown at the West Nile level. Okay? We can see the teacher ratio at that level. That is for pre-primary, for primary, secondary, all the way. And then I can choose a district. Maracha. So when we take Maracha, we see at the primary level, we have 8,297 learners in 95 schools with 787 teachers, having 495 male teachers and 292 female teachers, and the people-to-teacher ratio in the area is 61. We can compare that to the national and see what interventions need to be done there. For secondary, we have 4,154 learners in 13 schools, and with 127 teachers, and the people-teacher ratio is 33. We can go deeper in this. If you could take me on still on that journey, we can choose a county. Maracha County or Maracha East? Okay. So let's choose Agai Town Council. We could choose what is your exact. Okay, thank you. So when we go to this Agai Council, we see 2 primary schools private, okay, no public. Then see 1,000 learners in schools. Then in secondary 6 learners in one school, and it is public. There is no public. There is no secondary school. In primary, have 1,301 learners in 5 schools. Public are 2, 3 are private. So we can go lowest level, that is parish, and we see the primary schools which are there. So you're going to do that for the secondary schools. We are talking up to the sub-county level, as the policy mentions. And then for primary schools, we can go into the parish. So in this Godiria ward, we have 1 pre-primary school and private. And then we have 607 learners, of which 349 males, 158 female, in 3 schools. 2 are private, 1 is public. So there is 1 public school, 1 primary school in Godiria ward, and there is no nursery in Son. Godria. Thank you for that. So, and at that, we still see the rest of the indicators to that level and a good picture of what is in there. At that same level, we see the various parishes and their distribution. We have Godria ward, which we saw has 3 primary schools. And then we have more indicators, attendance. Pre-primary, we have the boys and girls, and we have more indicators. And we have more indicators down. Now, for the advances, as I promised, fulfilling my promise, I want to show you how we can generate our own goals. So let's say I want to know something about the primary schools. I can have them showing public and private. I can choose specific, and choose the level of aggregation, which can be district, or choose a specific. And let me pick here for this. And for Amria, I have generated my own bar chart, and I can save it as an image or even exporter that is in there. So that is the power that you have on this platform. Just get your mobile device, your smartphone, your laptop, any computer that you have, visit the UBOS website, go to the data portals, and you have all that access with you. Thank you very much. Allow me to end here.
And come to the end of the session, UBOS evidence based with the things that have just been presented. and the challenge we had were undertaking the education census. I'll take you through recommendations that we've put together for you. So, one, that that learners without learner identification exist. That is the recommendation. We are saying that these learners should be allocated a learner identification number, but prefer the national identification number. So learner identification number replaced with a need for all learners for tracking beyond even the process. OS should be registered in the EMIS, Education Management System. And those which had EMIS numbers and those with duplicate, this should be reconciled so that they have only one EMIS numbers. As noted, there were 3 primary classes operating in government primary schools that are normally recognized. Hence, should be streamlined for accurate planning and resource allocation. UBOS, working with the Ministry of Education and Sports, will update the EMIS regularly to account for new schools and learners. We also recommend the Ministry of Education and Sports work national identification and registration authority should ensure that all learners have a national identification number. That there are parishes without any primary school and also sub-counties without a government secondary school. So my nation is that these parishes should be considered in line with the existing policy. And achieve the international recommended pupil or student ratio, which is a ratio of 40 learners, 1 teacher, recommending that government needs to accept recruitment of teachers in primary and secondary schools. Ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening to us.
More hand clap, hand clap. Thank you much. I am going to introduce the PS, and I'm going to hand over this microphone to our Executive Director, who will ably is the Minister of Education and Sport here with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Didakas. I want to welcome my sister, the Secretary Minister of Education. I remember we started this journey together in 2000. We recruited everybody in February, beginning of March, we start and COVID set. That exercise was suspended. But you could promise that when the country comes to say we shall the census, and here we are, and I'm happy that director in charge of things. And now a PS in charge of things. We have presented data that is has huge information that is in the education sector, up to 9 times. Now, I want to make some few supplementary points from the presentation that these are us. We did not take the age of origin, birth. So when you hear Uganda had the highest, it's that all these are from Uganda region. And I think surprising, all of us, we invite to come to good schools, Namga, Kayaza, Budo, Nami, where I went. So I was counted there, but it means that I am origin of Uganda. So they interpret it as that these are learners who have to move to where they want. Second, we've not, I'm surprised we didn't slide on others with special needs. And I know you captured that. So the report has information. And Edward, you need also include it on your dissemination platform so that we can show that we are gender sensitive. And then refugees. Could it be responsible for those learners in primary that are over age or not? And I remember we had a question. So we need to address it as we finalize the dashboard and the theory report that it can be used policy. With these remarks, may I invite the Secretary If she wishes to move majesty to the podium and make remarks, then when you finish, you have me invite the guest with the chairman of directors to give his closing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Director, for inviting me to say a word. I don't know how much I moved, but asked me to